Well, I want to welcome you to the Better Divorce podcast. And I am excited to start this next series as I'm back from my own break. And I highly recommend that at some point in your life, in your career, and sometimes even your relationships, you take a break. I was out of commission for the month of May. I was still working, but not locally mediating or coaching because my husband and I decided to take a little trip to Europe. We went and spent a month in Italy, and I'm back mediating, in fact, today. So I don't waste any time. And the podcast has a very soft spot in my heart because it's something that happened organic as a tool and a resource to help people navigate their relationships wisely. And today is no different. I welcome what I consider a dear friend, Cathy Eads, and a past client. And also she is the voice of the Better Divorce Blueprint audiobook. So you may sound familiar once I introduce her, once you hear her very calming, soothing, zen, nurturing voice. So welcome to the podcast, Cathy. I'm so honored and thrilled that we're doing this episode today.
Well, thank you so much for having me as a guest, because I certainly owe a lot of my where I have come to be to your guidance during my divorce and your friendship afterward as well. So I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we met, I'm thinking it's 4.5, 5 years ago, but who's counting? We're not, going down to the minute when you were at the very beginning of your divorce decision journey and all of that and learning a little bit about what a certified divorce coach does. And, you were full of questions, and rightfully so. A lot of people go, wait, what do you do? How do you do that? And so could you briefly kind of just not give me a testimonial per se, but just see if you could summarize answering that question? What was it that I did for you, with you? And how was that experience? How did it support you?
I was at a place where, as I'm sure many people are, in this state of having so many emotions and needing to make really vital, important decisions and having no legal a knowledge of what was what, or very little, I should say. And so I needed someone who could kind of bring all of that together and also help me keep my cool when the emotions were kind of running the show so that I could bring my mind back on board and get the facts and the logistics worked out to decide what to do next, because I think so often we can get stuck in our thoughts and our feelings, and it's kind of hijacking us doing what needs to be done, and having that calm mind to make the best decision, because we don't want our emotions driving our decisions. We don't want our anger or anything. So when I was able to reach out to you, you provided, support on a very regular basis. We were in communication very frequently. You were very accessible, which was huge, because I think sometimes as soon as we get some of us can be very reactionary in our emotional response to things. And we don't want to pick up the phone and call the attorney because that costs a fortune. And we don't want to pick up the phone and call the ex because that could be very problematic. And we want to stay calm and in control for our kids and our workplace. And being able to reach out to you, knowing that you were the sounding board, you were the first person that I would need to call. When I had something come up, I would be like, I just need to call Paulette, and then everything's going to be okay, because she's going to answer my question or calm me down or tell me, don't worry about that. That's actually not a problem. So
True,
yeah.
true. And I'm glad you clarified that. I don't replace other professionals. Like Cathy specifically did have an attorney. There are some situations where couples can avoid litigation and not engage in and having an attorney represent them. But 99% of the time, my clients excuse me, do have an attorney. And you really need to learn how to work with your attorney, right? It's
Yeah.
learning to be a credible client and not send 4.5-page emails to them that will be not deleted, but ignored for a bit. Really learning how to navigate and work through the process of divorce, whether that be the psychological, mental, emotional side, right? Or the judicial, legal, financial side,
Right.
and really making those wise decisions. So, a lot of people assume I give legal advice, and I'm always the first to say that would be a question for your attorney.
Yes.
But of course, being that I've navigated these waters for close to 18 years now, I do have it pretty much down to a science with the process. So, yeah, just wanted to clarify that, and that was really helpful. Thank you for that. I'm always a little embarrassed or humbled by the words people say. So, but I have also witnessed the transformation in you, because when you came to me, and that sounds very strange, but yeah, when we found each other, as my clients normally do, either by word of mouth, very satisfied clients, never mind my book, workbook, podcast, and Substack and blogs, and I'm a guest speaker at a lot of events as well. There's a lot of fear. I see this, not you
Mhm.
personally, but scared, confused, overwhelmed, sometimes angry, extremely sad,
Mhm.
abandoned, overwhelmed. I could probably give 40 more words, but
And all of those
all of
would
those.
describe me as well. I was in all of those at some point, and sometimes all of them at once.
Yes, and then all of a sudden I get the honor of seeing you on the other side, right? And now if you're watching the audio, you can see, I mean, she's just stunning and poised and articulate and intelligent and confident, and she's a whole nother person. I say to people, you cannot imagine how beautiful your life is going to be
Yes.
after we get to the other side of the tracks, other side of the rainbow, other side of the whatever analogy you want to use. It's a matter of having the faith and trust in me and yourself and the process to really do the work and make sure that that there is another side, because
Mhm.
sometimes we feel like this is it. I'm a loser. I'm a reject. I made so many mistakes, and all those other fears that we have. I'm going to be naked, broke, homeless, alone, living under a bridge, starving, and have 14 diseases. The catastrophizing of everything that never happens. Are there days when you may cry and slam doors and
Mhm.
swear and curse and spit and look at your wedding album and listen to those sad songs? Absolutely. That's part of the healing journey. But one of the things that really helped me was yoga. And I know that sounds crazy. Yes, it is 10:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. Both of us are stone cold sober. We're not being weird. This is the truth. Preaching, I felt so disconnected from who I was as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a person. And I stopped trusting myself and my inner
Mhm.
voice. And it wasn't until I stumbled literally into a yoga class, with all of those lists of fears and things that we just reiterated. Don't need to go into those again. And I left feeling hopeful, grounded, at peace. And there's a methodology to that. And yes, it did take me over a decade to become an ERYT 500 who had her own registered yoga school. I taught 200, 300, 500 children's and prenatal yoga teacher trainings. And I even had a registered yoga school and retreat center, an Ayurvedic spa in Belize for 2 years. And Cathy had the honor of coming down and visiting and hanging out with me at her home down there where she did a retreat. And this is where we really started to deepen our knowledge and bond. And it was then that I recommended she study Ayurveda deeper, and
Mhm.
recommended a dear friend of mine, Arpita Shah, who is in Dallas. Shout out to you, my dear. And she took it and ran with it. And now she is thriving in her own methodology and teaching. And I wanted to share this methodology and technique with my listeners, my audience, friends, foes, lead, whomever listens to this, because it works. I lived it. I know it. I taught it. I don't have time for that anymore. I still think of yoga to me as a lifestyle and more a personal practice, because doing the work I do with private mediation and certified divorce coaching, particularly in high conflict situations, and some of them, in fact, go to trial like mine did, but I can't teach teacher trainings anymore because of that. It was a hard decision for me, but this is where I bring Cathy into my umbrella circle tribe to do that work for me. So if you are at a point where you really don't know if it's time to go, how do you really know if it's time to go? How do you know how to make these decisions about what attorney to use? Do you need an attorney? What is an equitable division of marital assets? What does that look like? If you have children, what does that look like? There's so many overwhelming and vital decisions to make. And if you make a decision without really discerning wisely, it could blow up into a nightmare. So this is why Cathy is here. So I just wanted to give you that precursor. It's like, well, why are you talking about yoga, Paulette? So Cathy, tell us a little bit, now that we know, our relationship and how it's developed. Talk a little bit about, once you were kind of going through your divorce, how did yoga help you, or how did you stumble upon that revelation that it was something that you wanted to make the next chapter of your life so much a part of?
Yeah, it's interesting, the journey of yoga. I think that anyone who has started at any point in their life and keeps at it for years and continues their practice will see there are certain points where something becomes more meaningful, or you understand it at a much deeper level. And so I'd had a personal yoga practice for, I don't know, 15 years at least. And then and when I started, my children were very young, and I just was like, I need to do some kind of exercise without having to get a sitter, leave my house. They can be here playing beside me. And so I just found a channel on Direct TV at the time that had a 30-minute yoga class that I could watch. And that was perfect. That fit the need that I had at that point. Was physical exercise. I knew nothing else about yoga as a lifestyle, a philosophy, a way of, healthy living, which I'm sad that it took me a long time to learn that. But, when the student is ready, the teacher appears type of situation. In the middle of my separation and into the beginning of my divorce, and then right at, I guess, probably, yeah, still in the middle of the divorce, I started a 200-hour teacher training. And I had never, ever, ever wanted to be a teacher up until that point, where I was like, I'm going to need to do something different. I had left one career before we separated. I was helping my last child get graduated from high school. And I thought, I was in a sales position previously. And that is not true to really who I am. That's a much more masculine out there, even though it was in the education space. So I wanted to pivot to something that was much more true to myself. And I searched around, found this training, and I really am very happy that, sometimes the universe just feeds you what you need. And I'm so grateful when it happens. And this is the one that when I read about this training, it kind of resonated with me. There was an in-person component at the very end, even though there was still a lot of stuff that wasn't open in person in the middle of COVID, which is when I was in the middle of all my divorce stuff. And it was a very traditional, very classical training. And I'm so grateful for that, because it exposed me to all of my teachers were Indian people who either immigrated from India or they were just doing the training and going back to India. So all that to say, that's when all of this stuff hit me of, oh, wait, yoga is the practice, the physical practice is this tiny little sliver of this healthy way of living your life. And a lot of that is introspection, self awareness, emotional regulation that comes from that. And so for me, that was this aha moment of, oh, I am so in the right place right now because my life is off the rails. and and so emotionally am I. And I happened to be in, for many years, a very high conflict relationship. And I had become a very emotionally reactive person and just didn't, I was kind of disconnected from my body, which I think a lot of people are. I spent so much time up in my head and I just thought, I'm eating healthy, I'm getting exercise, like that, everything should just be okay. But if we don't take care of our mind and our spiritual selves, then the body also suffers. Like they're all connected. And I just, for whatever reason, like now it's so obvious to me that I'm like, why did I not understand this? But at the time I was like, this is really important work that each individual person needs to do to take care of themselves. And we, especially as women, I think are taught or we learn somehow that we push through and we take care of everybody and we ignore the signs that our mind and our emotions and our body are giving us because we don't feel like we can stop and take care of ourselves. We just have to do these things. We just have to push through. And then when we get to a certain point in life, it catches up with us and your body will eventually say, I'm not going to let you ignore me anymore. That's usually, I'm not going to let you ignore me, your mind, your spiritual well-being. Like I am going to force you with a physical illness to stop and take care of yourself. Um, so I've gone on and on. I don't know that I answered your original question, but that was a pivot point for me. And that piece, while it did not make the stress, the anger, the resentment, it didn't make those things go away in the divorce. It didn't make him behave any differently. It didn't make the process less volatile, but it made me better able to regulate my emotions, to just take the pause that's necessary to not immediately react, and to recognize that it's really important to rest and take care of yourself. This is a very tender time, and it is okay to just take it slow. You don't have to race anymore. Like that part's over. So for me, that was a big shift to living a more calm, peaceful, well-paced life instead of rushing around and feeling like I had to solve everything all the time.
Well-paced is a great way to word it. And I'm glad you brought up emotional regulation. It's
Mm-hmm.
nearly impossible to be even keel, right? Just sort of even Steven, as we
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
That's the joke because my husband's name is Steven. So, and he's very Zen. So, if you look at changes in your life, the normal ones, children going off to college, that kind of thing, and the death of a loved one, and in some ways, divorce. There are milestones in life, and with the divorce numbers being so high, it's no longer something odd. I mean, we think of all of our friends and how many of them are divorced, or how many are family members, or even our neighbors or coworkers. It's not, back in the day, it used to be like 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 and more, 1 in 1,000. Now it's like, at least 50%, right? So, and I'm not pro divorce, everyone, remember that. But the point is, it's a reality.
Yes.
It is a choice. You can either go through this crazy, like a bottle of hot sauce, and sprinkling it all over the place, or you can go through it mindful, prepared, regulated, centered, grounded, um, educated, focused,
Yeah.
supported, guided, and knowledgeable, so that you can really have that grace and dignity that you deserve. You never want to look back at it and go, what a disaster, Now there might be parts of your divorce that you could look at and say, what a disaster, I mean, nothing is perfect. And even, my best poster child, I hate that phrase, but we'll use it. Clients, have their moments, right? I
Of
mean,
course, because we're all human.
yes.
I mean, to have an emotional reaction is very normal. Like
Mhm.
I definitely don't want people to think that I never get angry or I never cry or I never have an emotional reaction. It's just that now the things that happen outside me can never shake this. I just call it the unshakable calm. That is what you cultivate when you have a regular practice of yoga, meditation, breath work, other spiritual things too. But when you have a regular practice, it's like putting these little deposits in your well-being account, just like we do with our retirement account or our savings for the rainy day or the vacation. You put it in there because you know you need it, and then when time comes when you need it, you can make a withdrawal. So to me, there's this unshakable calm, and this, inner peace is a very cliche term, but it's a very real thing that I'm not as reactive now because I know the peace I seek, the calm that I want is in me, and nobody can take that away from me unless I want to give it away. And that was a very big shift for me too.
Yes, yes. My first teacher, well, not my first teacher, but my first teacher trainer, Maureen
Mm-hmm.
Spencer. The name, hello, Maureen. If you, really want to look into an expert, she's a leading epidemiologist and an
Mm-hmm.
RN at, well, she's retired, but in that ways, but every noteworthy hospital in Boston knows who she is. And trust me, there are a lot of them in Boston where I grew up. So Maureen's yoga teacher training school was called Finding Inner Peace. And as soon as
Yep.
I heard that, I went, give it to me now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to drink the Kool-Aid, as they say, right? I drank from the well, and the well of knowledge that you find in your teacher, your mentor,
Mm-hmm.
is really inspirational. And they, of course, had a teacher, and they had a teacher, because there's
Yes.
this lineage in yoga. And that's one of the really beautiful, profound things of it. Now, in asana, there are, I don't know, 30 or 40 different brands or types of yoga asana in the United States of America. So everything from Ashtanga to Yin, that's A to Y. There is no Z yet. Somebody probably will come up with that one. So the asana part of it, is the movement, right? The exercise, as Cathy was stating. But there are many other aspects of it that helps you have that discernment and that emotional regulation, that helps you, yes, move your body so that you are not going crazy. There's something about moving your body that makes you stay more centered
Mm-hmm.
too, than just sitting and catastrophizing and worrying that you're going to be living under a bridge and all those other things. So it's it's a big, wide, huge world of knowledge that can you can kind of pick, and what do we say? Take from the mat what serves you and leave
Yes.
behind what does not,
Mm-hmm.
because not everything is going to resonate with you. And I mean, you, not you, Cathy, but you, anyone, the listener. You have to really discern, and that's part of making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get divorced, or you make a decision to separate, or you decide to stay married, you have to make that choice. And listening to outside influences and learning to really mitigate them wisely is non-existent if you have been living in a relationship where you've shut off your ability to listen to those voices. And I highly recommend people uh, do a little bit of investigating with that. It will help tremendously. So let's talk a little bit about this advanced training that you did in Ayurveda, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit more of that, because the 200 hour, which it's the scratching the surface. It's the first page of the book. It's that little bit of a like aha moment of, oh, there's a lot to learn here.
Yes.
By fifth or sixth version of the Yoga Sutras I read, and the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, and all of the textbooks that are required reading depending on your teacher, and a typical yoga teacher training, that you realize that there's this whole nother realm of masterful ancient knowledge known as Ayurveda. I have not drunk the well as much as Cathy has, due to the work I do with mediation and divorce coaching. So tell people, what the heck is Ayurveda, and how would that benefit them being aware of that? People are really curious. So how can you describe your experience, and what is it?
Yeah, and I want to thank you too for introducing me to Arpita Shah, because she has been an incredibly wonderful teacher. I did yoga. Well, I did my Ayurvedic Wellness Counselor training with her the year after I completed, or maybe 2 years after I completed my 200-hour. And then I went ahead and did a 300-hour Ayurvedic yoga teacher training with her as well. So I've, and then I also went on an Ayurvedic retreat to India with her this year so that I could have the full experience of all the treatments that I learned about. And I also had an autoimmune condition that I've been managing, and wanted to go beyond what can be done in the West, and have had tremendous positive results. Probably I was there for the 21-day treatment plan and made more progress in that 21 days than I had in a year and a half working with doctors here in the US. So I am not only a firm believer in the Ayurvedic health management system, but I am a recipient of the benefits of it as well. So, but Ayurveda, some people call it the sister science of yoga, but to me, yoga is a part of Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is just this holistic, healthy wellness management system that is all about making healthy choices to take care of your body, your mind, your spirit. It looks at your dietary choices, and also it's very individualized. So if a person came to me with arthritis in their knee, I would want to know whether it was predominantly pitta, vata, or kapha arthritis. And I would ask them many questions, because one person going to a Western doctor that says they have arthritis will get a prescription for one of, I don't know, probably 10 medicines. And they all kind of do the same thing. They calm the symptoms so the person can get on with their life, which is a very, and I want to preface this by saying I have family members that are alive and well because of Western intervention and Western medicine. I do not think that Western medicine is horrible. However, it's great at a like traumatic, solving those kinds of problems. Ayurveda is wonderful at setting up a foundation for a really healthy life to prevent you from needing really big interventions.
Mhm.
And so, all that being said, even if you have a chronic condition, it's a wonderful way to manage that in a natural way without filling your body with chemical medications, if you are looking for another alternative. And it incorporates yoga, breath work, meditation, herbal remedies that have been working for 5,000 years. I mean, they're sometimes you're like, this is too simple to work. And here's the thing that I know: Ayurveda simply works, and it works simply. It is simple things that we have kind of lost touch with. Some of us never knew.
Sure.
And it's using your own body, using your own mind to make good choices and set a foundation for a healthy way of living. So
Perfect.
that being said,
You've said it.
all of my yoga is now also influenced by my Ayurvedic knowledge.
Mhm.
So I know that in the middle of the day, if you're taking a class, you do not want hot yoga. If it's the middle of the summer, also not a good idea, because pitta energy, the fiery energy, is already so present. You need a more cooling
And if you
practice.
live in the South like we do, and it's
Yes.
already 95 degrees,
Yeah.
probably not a great time to do hot yoga at noon, right?
Yes. And I understand when some people are like, but I feel so good. And I'm thinking, yes. And sometimes what we are drawn to is the thing we already have a lot of, like,
It's like a magnet.
and
Yeah.
we need to think about what's best for us, not is what is best for us is not always the thing we want the most. I really love chocolate chip cookies, but I don't need to eat a dozen of them. So we have to
Yeah.
Balance is the key to all of it. Like
Sure.
really keeping a homeostasis
Right.
and listening to your body. Like throughout the day, it changes, and every other day, it changes.
Yeah, I love the Ayurvedic words of prakriti and vikriti, which is just meaning
Hmm.
basically you're in balance or you're out of balance. And
Yeah.
nobody's right on balance 24/7, or you'd all be little Ayurvedic robots of perfection. So, but welcome to being human. But
Yes.
we live in a circadian clock, and we have seasons and time of day and dispositions, personalities. Some people are very earthy and grounded. Others are fiery and competitive.
Mhm.
Others are airy and creative, and we're usually a combination of the three. Very rarely is one person 100% of any of those. So we're all just this, world of being a complex human being. And
Mhm.
Ayurveda looks at it and says, what in your life is out of balance and what in your life is in balance? And then let's see what we can do to adjust it so that there's more harmony,
Yes.
and tranquility, and the systems of the body, and all 14 of them are working together in
Mhm.
harmony. I'm talking biological, respiratory, cardiovascular, et cetera, because that's really where the body starts to break down. And when you live in constant stress, like we do in divorce, what happens to those systems of the body is not all 14 break down at the same time. They'll just drop dead. But one of them will start to wreak havoc,
Mhm.
whether that be, neurological and overthinking, or cardiovascular, and you'll get heart palpitations, or, whatever, sinus congestion. And this is where Cathy comes in with diagnosis and all that. And, pulse reading. And trust me, there is a methodology to much of it. But regardless, it's something that really benefited me, predominantly looking at my lifestyles, my choices of diet, even where I lived.
Mhm.
I don't do well in cold climates. I'm absolutely miserable. So, but I was born in, yes, Boston. Say, do I need to say more? But I'm not a tree. I actually moved. So, some people are more stubborn and say, well, where you are born, you have to die. So, that's a whole nother conversation, and perhaps another podcast. But so I welcome this conversation because I know it helped me tremendously. I can see the transformation, and she drank from the well, drank the Kool-Aid. It's a horrible expression, but you all know what I mean by that, right? But and she also is now offering a 12-week program, workshop, course. And can you describe what that is and why someone may want to look into doing that with you?
Sure, sure. I do one-on-one work with some people, but I decided that I also wanted to incorporate a group specifically for women around middle age and over going through divorce. And it took me a while to get to the point where I felt ready for it because I remember, Paulette, you had said right after my divorce was complete, oh, you could do this. There's such a need. And I was like, I'm too close to it right now. I'll keep that in my back pocket. And I definitely am at the point now where I can handle other people's emotions around their situation without it being problematic for me. But
It was very
this
wise with you, to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And that awareness, that kind of self-compassion piece was a big part of my yoga learning too. Just to like allow yourself to have what you need and to say no to things that won't work for you. It's what a concept. But yeah, the 12-week program is a group program for women in this situation, either in the discernment stage, possibly, but those going through or healing from the divorce. I think there's the healing and recovery piece. You're not just suddenly because the divorce is final, everything's great. There's a lot that has to be processed and healed, and that can go on for quite a while. Everybody's on their own path with that.
Sure.
But this particular container is for coming together for a gentle, nurturing yoga class once a week. It'll be recorded because life happens, and that is available on the client portal for people to use. And they'll also have access to my on demand library of some practices, breath work, some meditation, some other yoga. And I do a one-on-one with them about a self-care practice strategy, so that you want to set yourself up for success, and having someone kind of walk you through that. I have a planning PDF that we go through and set yourself up, because we all have aspirational goals. Oh, I'm going to do yoga 5 times a week and I'm going to do it for an hour. And well, I just kind of
And
talk
then you
people
get
through
that
that
email from your
process
attorney and
of
you
like, is that realistic? Or
go,
would
"Mhm,
3 times a week for 30 minutes actually fit your schedule better? Or, we just talk about that kind of stuff, and get the plan set up, and then track that during the 12-week program. So you see like, oh, I thought this would work, but it doesn't actually work for my schedule. And then we revisit that and say, well, what would work better? Because my goal is for people to learn these tools, to take the ones that really resonate with them, and then they can stay and continue with the group, of course, but also feel like, okay, I've got what I need, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to be able to continue this on my own
right."
too.
And the beauty of that is it's in the privacy of their own home,
Yes.
right? So it can be something you can do. Nobody needs to know about it, on your own time, place, space, um, early in the morning, late at night, went live
Mhm.
time as she's, offering that. Like she said, it's recorded. And you're dealing with someone, a professional who's not only been through divorce, but has risen through the ashes and transformed herself. And as a professional, can hold your hand and walk through creating a lifestyle change and a routine that you, yes, would probably need to adjust as you get, healthier, stronger, more confident, more resilient going through it. But starting at the bottom and working up through that ladder.
Mhm.
And when she uh, explained this to me, I thought, perfect. So I want to make sure that my audience has the opportunity to work with Cathy. So, what is the best way for people to learn more about this program, about you, about working with you? What's the best way for them to reach out?
I do have a page set up that is yoga-for-divorce.com. And that's a great way to go get the overview for the program, as well as some links to schedule. I absolutely love people to schedule a call if they have any questions, because it's very important to me that you feel confident working with me, that you feel that we are a good fit, that you feel like this type of yoga is going to work for you and your body. And I will say, I do a very gentle, very methodical, slow moving yoga that is married with the breath. So if anybody's concerned about, oh my gosh, I've never been to a yoga studio, that is not an issue, because we're not doing, actually, a lot of the things that I do, you can't, or the approach that I take, you're not going to find at a studio down the street
No, you won't.
anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a more Westernized yoga has in a lot of ways been turned into go, go, do it hard, do it hot, sweat a lot, which is not really the traditional approach, as you know. But yes,
Yeah.
yoga-for-divorce.com. There's a link to set up a call with me to get questions answered. And there's also links to join the class. Or if you'd like to work one-on-one, some people really like that personal attention and they don't want to be in a group of people. That is also an option. So there's a link there for that as well.
Perfect. So all of that will be in the show notes. So you don't need to take notes, everyone. The link will be directly below the video, so you'll be able to access that. And if you have any questions, take the opportunity to book a confidential, complimentary conversation with Cathy. She really knows her stuff, and I personally can vouch for her. So thank you so much. And everybody listening, you got to make it better. This is never an easy journey, but it is worth venturing. It is worth going through. And the transformation on the other side, even though you may not believe me right now, just look at Cathy.
There's
The
there is
evidence is
hope on the other side, and the closer you get, like the more you can feel it. And I would like for the opportunity to be able to help bridge that for people, to help them get there, because I know what it's like in the middle, where you're like, I can't even see that right now.
Mhm.
I just need to get today taken care of. And I understand that too. Um, and I just wanted to say I misspoke because yoga for divorce, no dashes, yogaforddivorce.com. That is the correct.
Yogaforddivorce.com.
Yes.
How easy to remember.
Yes.
And if you yourself are either contemplating divorce or managing divorce or trying to heal from divorce and you feel stuck and you really do need an expert certified divorce coach, you found me. You know how to find me. Cathy, as being a former client, is again proof that the work I do matters and the work I do works and the work I do gives you the results that you deserve. And if you can mediate, of course, that's always an option. Some of us can, some of us can't. Alternative dispute resolution is an alternative to litigation, and it's something I'm very proud of facilitating and helping people avoid that. Not everyone can, so don't feel bad, but let me help you with that. So everybody, thank you, Cathy. Until next time, make it better because that's how I want you to live.
Thank you, Paulette.
You're welcome. Talk soon, everyone.